Escape QuickBooks Quicksand with NetSuite by Oracle, the #1 financial system. Special financing is back. NetSuite is offering a one-of-a-kind financing program only for those ready to switch from QuickBooks to NetSuite today. Head to netsuite.com/Wall Street right now.
California Governor Gavin Newsom holds on to his seat. Plus, from cans to cars, we're following the price hikes involving steel and aluminum.
The companies that use it, from Campbell's Soup to Peloton, are scrambling to get hold of the metal and they're having to pay more for it.
And it's not just CEOs pulling in six-figure salaries. It's Wednesday, September 15th. I'm Mark Stewart with the Wall Street Journal. Here's the AM edition of What's News, the top headlines and business stories moving your world today. We're going to begin in California, where Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom survived a Republican-led recall election, according to a projection by the Associated Press. The recall effort was fueled by frustrations over his handling of the pandemic. He spoke shortly after the race was called Tuesday night.
Tonight, I'm humbled, grateful, but resolved in the spirit of my political hero, Robert Kennedy, to make more gentle the life of this world. Thank you all very much, and thank you to 40 million Americans, 40 million Californians, and thank you for rejecting this recall.
Newsom's leading opponent, talk show host Larry Elder, received the most votes on the ballot's second question of who should become governor if the recall were successful. Now to Asia, where North Korea has fired 2 ballistic missiles off its east coast. This is according to officials in South Korea and Japan. We asked our Korea Bureau Chief Tim Martin to explain the significance of this move.
North Korea has been quiet for much of the year. We haven't seen many weapons tests from them, but the ballistic missile launch we saw is likely to generate backlash from the U.S., Japan, and elsewhere, because these types of tests violate UN Security Council resolutions and have historically gotten lots of blowback from the international community. North Korea often turns to weapons tests to remind the world, hey, we exist, we're powerful, and this is even more important now because of the internal strife they've seen with COVID-19, food shortages, and economic hardship.
A Journal exclusive, some well-known names in business are expected to meet with President Biden today as part of a White House bid to promote COVID-19 vaccination requirements for the private sector. A White House official said participants include the heads of Walt Disney, Microsoft, and Walgreens. The meeting comes on the heels of a sweeping new plan President Biden announced last week aimed at bringing the pandemic under control, including new vaccine requirements affecting roughly 100 million workers. And SpaceX plans to launch a crew of 4 civilians into orbit as early as tonight from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The mission, named Inspiration 4, is the first time an all-civilian crew has been sent into orbit. The crew is due to orbit dozens of times and return to Earth around 3 days later. We'll keep you posted on WSJ.com. Another hurdle in making some of the products we use all of the time. Manufacturers are facing the highest steel and aluminum prices in years, and in some cases, the higher prices are already hitting consumers. I want to bring in reporter David Hidari, who often covers commodities for us. David, good morning.
Morning, Mark.
David, we've seen a lot of supply chain issues this year. What's specifically happening with steel and aluminum?
Well, it's the same thing that's happening with many other raw materials. Supplies are low, prices are rising, and the companies that use it, from Campbell's Soup to Peloton, are scrambling to get hold of the metal, and they're having to pay more for it.
Just how more expensive are we talking about, David?
So spot prices at the start of this month were around $1,940 a tonne, which is about $560 above their prices a year ago. The US government also has an index that tracks the price of steel and iron, and that nearly doubled in August from the year before, making it the largest relative increase since records began in the 1920s.
So we're going pretty far back in time. Let's talk about the bottom line. Then how is this translating to price tags when we go shopping?
It depends on what you're buying, but higher costs are already hitting consumers. The price of household appliances rose by 6.8% in August, and that's the highest year-over-year increase in a decade.
David Hidari, tracking commodities for us. David, thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Just ahead, what's behind the often six-figure salaries for corporate board members? We'll break things down after the break.
Escape QuickBooks Quicksand with NetSuite by Oracle, the #1 financial system. Special financing is back. NetSuite is offering a one-of-a-kind financing program only for those ready to switch from QuickBooks to NetSuite today. Head to netsuite.com/Wall Street right now.
It's not just CEOs of big companies that can command a big salary. So too can its board members. If you're a board member for a publicly traded company, you can easily receive six figures, often in cash or stock, for your work. According to a new report from the consulting firm Compensation Advisory Partners, the median pay for directors in 2020 was $310,000. That's flat from 2019 and up from $305,000 in 2018. To get a better understanding of what's behind these salaries, let's bring in the Journal's Emily Glazer, who spends a lot of time reporting on business leaders. Emily, good to have you here.
Thank you.
You know, Emily, it's a lot of money we're talking about. What do these directors do to earn this kind of money?
You know, the directors are meeting sometimes weekly now because this is such a crisis situation with the pandemic. Many boards meet monthly, but at the very least, they're meeting quarterly and then talking quite a bit by phone to talk about the strategic direction of the company. They're sometimes fending off activist investors. They set compensation for the C-suite and other top officers. They are advising on deals. They are also helping with CEO and C-suite succession. So directors of companies and the boards are really looking at long-term strategy, the leadership, the culture, and the mission of the company, which may not always get into the exact day-to-day, but I think they would argue that they're often working quite a bit outside of the board meetings.
And it's not unusual for someone to serve on many boards.
Indeed. I think that we're starting to see a little bit of a drop-off because it doesn't look good if you're on too many. You want to make sure that you have enough time and attention. And certainly if a company is in their own crisis, that you can help and deal with that. And these types of jobs can be really demanding. If directors are chair of a committee or chair of the board, can be like a full-time job. But it's not unusual to see folks serving on 3 or 4 or 5 different boards. And over time, the more that someone has board experience, the more that they're asked to join other boards. And we're certainly seeing that lately with a lot of women and people of color because boards are desperately trying to diversify.
Emily, why does it matter how much these board members are paid?
Well, Mark, there's sometimes shareholder litigation. There's certainly a spotlight on technology firms where directors are often paid in the high 6 figures, even low 7 figures. Let's not forget that this is not just cash compensation. A lot of compensation, sometimes half or more, is in stock. And so if the company is doing well, the directors will reap rewards from that. So more companies began asking shareholders to approve limits on director pay during the past decade. And that came after a lot of state court rulings suggested that the lack of effective limits and the fact that directors set their own compensation could leave board members more vulnerable to shareholder litigation. So we saw directors at Facebook, hit with lawsuits over board pay practices. And they've, denied this in the past, but it's something that is getting a little more shareholder attention.
Do you have to have a strong salary to woo people? Is it that competitive?
I would say it's not really about the compensation for directors because it's assumed that you're going to be making at least 6 figures on these boards. Instead, it's more about the company, the brand name, how that company's doing, what their management team is like, the makeup of the board, and what's expected. I hear from a lot of board members these days, if the board isn't diverse, people might not want to join it, or if their board's kind of viewed as stodgy and not really open to change, people don't want to join. Or if it's a board in crisis, people don't want to join because then all of a sudden it rests on their shoulders. And so I think it's less about the money, we'll give you $10,000 more. That's not really how it works. It's more about what the work's going to be like. Certainly money matters, but usually folks that are at this level, they've been on the C-suite or they've been really high level executives. They have often been paid well for many years. And so this is often part of their kind of like next chapter in the work that they do. And yes, I think many of them enjoy the money. I would say some of the people I talk with don't do this for the money. They do it for the prestige and like the legacy and other matters. So it's a little bit different than your typical kind of job hiring process if you're talking about a management role.
And Emily, how has the pandemic changed compensation and how these positions are approached?
Well, one thing to note here is that this compensation for directors from this study found it was flat for the first time in about a decade, but that is expected to change. When I spoke with Jane Stevenson, who works at the executive advisory and recruitment firm Korn Ferry, she said how board members she's talking to are working more than ever before. The pandemic has raised questions about the future of work, about how people work, the labor shortage, supply chain issues. And then, of course, we've got environmental, social, and governance factors, diversity, equity, and inclusion. There's almost more topics than ever before that boards are weighing in on and management teams at a very high level in the direction of the company, how it's managed, the culture, the mission. And so board members are working more than ever. So I think we're going to see actually bumps in how they're compensated next year, alongside likely increases for executives or employees if the companies are doing well.
Emily Glazer often reports on the C-suite and beyond. Emily, thank you.
Thank you.
And finally, on the show, we've talked about Dogecoin, a digital currency that vaulted into crypto stardom this year thanks to a push from Tesla CEO Elon Musk. Dogecoin currently has a market value of around $31 billion. Now, a dogfight is breaking out over who has claim to the Dogecoin name. Here's WSJ reporter Caitlin Ostroff.
Dogecoin being intended as a joke, never to have value, the people who originally created it never registered for the trademark to Dogecoin. And so now, because Dogecoin has become really popular this year, a bunch of people are vying for the Dogecoin trademark because it hasn't been trademarked. The Dogecoin Foundation, which is behind the original cryptocurrency, is one of them. You also have weird other random companies that want to trademark Dogecoin for baby blankets and suits and clothing and all of this other stuff, and basically like have it in any way they can. And so that is kind of the battle going on right now for Dogecoin.
And that's what's news for Wednesday, halfway through the week. We'll be back tonight with a new show. Until then, we'll bring you the news on WSJ.com and the Journal app. I'm Mark Stewart for the Wall Street Journal. Thanks for listening.